What makes a property something that you want to take on rather than just pass off? Is there like some kind of number you have to hit specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I learned a lot from Tony Nago, who you guys both know. He was on the podcast 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
And looking at Tony now is like looking at myself in the future, what it could be if I make smart decisions. So my mindset has been, let me acquire as many properties as I can right now while still keeping my business going and still making sure that everyone that's in my business can eat and we can eat and live our lifestyle. So the flipping and the wholesaling pays the bills, it keeps the company going, lets everyone thrive. But any surplus, if I see a deal that I could take down and do a full burr and keep $100,000 in equity, I don't even need to make money today on it. I'm okay doing that deal if I just break even on it.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 19 of Realized Gains podcast. I'm your co-host, Jordan Lee, and I'm a mortgage lender based in the Portland area, and I'm licensed in about 10 states. And
I'm Stephen Tran. I am an Oregon realtor, and I'm a multifamily investor, short-term rentals. And we had a really great guest today. It's, sorry, Jordan, you were sick, but you missed out on a great interview. We interviewed Scott Dalinger.
Oh yeah, wholesaler, right?
Yes, local wholesaler. Kind of went through the entire process of what that looks like and why he's doing that and why he built his entire business around wholesale instead of being a realtor.
Yeah, what's the difference between a wholesale and retail versus a realtor?
Well, I guess you're just going to have to listen and find
Gonna
out.
have to listen and find out, right?
All right, check it out.
Hey guys, welcome to the Realized Gains podcast. I'm Stephen Tran.
I'm Alex Phan, and today we're with Scott Dalinger from Coast to Coast House Buyers. And today we're going to talk about wholesaling.
Hey guys, excited to be on the podcast.
Yeah, happy to have you. Yeah. Why don't we just jump in, and can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Yeah, so I am from California originally. I moved to Portland at the tail end of 2018. And before wholesaling, I had a corporate career and did a few different things in sales generally, and started wholesaling in 2019 and did my first deal towards the beginning of 2019. And we've been wholesaling ever since, and have since started to flip houses and do some other things, done rentals. But I have a wife named Alejandra who works in my business, and she's from South America, which is where we met. I have 2 kids. I have a baby girl who's 4 months old, Amelia, and then George. George is my 2-year-old son.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
For those listeners that aren't familiar, what is wholesaling?
So wholesaling, I call it the art of finding deeply discounted properties, direct to seller. Now, most people, when they think of wholesaling, they are thinking of what we call signing the contract. So a wholesaler gets a piece of property, a house, we call it inventory, and then we try to find a cash buyer who wants to buy that from us, and then we'll assign the contract to them and get paid out at closing.
Wow. My new best friend.
Yeah, if you don't know, Alex loves, he gets a bunch of his properties from wholesalers too.
I've purchased, I think, 5 properties through the wholesale market. I'm a licensed real estate agent for our new listeners, and I've subscribed to some of these lists, these wholesale lists, from companies like Scott's here, and they're priced generally. We'll talk about it a little bit deeper, but there's always a spread in it, right? There's always some numbers some meat on the bone still for us to make it worth it. But why don't you take us through kind of the wholesale process and explain generally how it works?
Yeah, so like I said, we focus on finding off-market deals, and that's what a good wholesaler should be doing. There's a lot of people out there that have tried to or created businesses based on finding buyers for other people's deals, but a true wholesaler or wholesale operation goes out, they find their own deal through direct-to-seller marketing, and then they match that deal through what we call the disposition process, where you advertise not the property, because that's brokering or doing real estate without a license, but you advertise your assignable purchase contract to buy a house at a certain price that's well below market value. So then you advertise that deal, to cash buyers and then try to, make a spread there. So if I could give an example, it would be, let's say if we could negotiate a deal that we think is going to be worth $450,000 fixed up, right? And maybe we think that this needs $50,000 in renovations. Us as wholesalers, we're going to be attempting to lock this thing up probably somewhere around as close as we can to $200,000. And maybe we'll get it for $250,000 and we will mark it up, right? So if we could get something for $250,000 with a deal like that, we may mark it up or advertise it for $275,000, $299,000. And you don't know what that spread is yet. You're just seeing a off-market deal that's not on the MLS. It's only from this wholesaler, and you're seeing it advertised for $299,000. So, you run your numbers and you may think, that's a great deal for this house's neighborhood. I could put in $50,000. I'm into it for $350,000. Sell it for $450,000 after fees and closing costs and hard money. I'm making a $60,000 profit.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned practicing with a real estate license. So do wholesalers have real estate licenses?
Some do, some don't. We don't. And most people I know in Oregon do not. There are some states passing regulations where it's now become necessary. If you want to wholesale, you have to have a real estate license. But I don't want another job. That's why I don't get mine.
Yeah.
And I know that there's benefits to having a real estate license when it comes to wholesaling.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends tell me I should get one, not because of any legality stuff, but if I had a license, because we also close on a lot of properties that we fix and flip and keep as rentals, I could actually take a commission and then have money paid to me at closing that I could then either use for renovations, put in my bank, or use to pay commissions to my salespeople. We can't do that, so we don't get any money at closing. It's all out of pocket. But that would be a big benefit. But the reason I just know myself, if I had my license, I would list my own houses, and that creates more work for me. It creates another job. I'm really trying to be just like solely focused on wholesaling.
Okay. What made you decide to do wholesaling?
I think like the reason everyone gets into real estate, at least real estate investing, is we all want freedom.
Yeah.
We all want freedom over our time, over our destiny. We want to be able to, in my case, I wanted to get out of a situation where my income was capped. So I had a really great job that I loved before I got into real estate investing. I was a national salesperson. I would travel across North America to Canada, and I love traveling, right? So if you're telling me, okay, you have to go to the Northeast for a week, I would hit Montreal, I'd hit Boston, Philadelphia, New York, and see customers and dine out, and it was all paid for, and I really loved that. But with the amount of money that I was earning, it was not enough to really thrive with where I was living. So, it was a good salary for Tennessee, which is where the company was based out of, but I lived in Southern California.
Oh, yeah.
And it doesn't, I was always going to be a renter at that salary. So I tried to, lift my commission cap and renegotiate, and they weren't having any of it. So I just made a decision that, I'm just going to move on and graduate to real estate investing. So while I was working that job, I simultaneously bought a course and then started taking the course on wholesaling and implementing the lessons and setting up my business, and ultimately did my first deal that enabled me to leave the corporate career. But
Wow.
It was really just, it wasn't so much that I didn't like the work. I loved the work. I just wanted ultimate financial freedom.
Yeah.
What was the overlap on that with your working and doing the wholesaling? Like, how long did you do a little bit of both?
Well, it was longer than you might think, because for a full year, almost a full year in 2018, when I was in California, I did both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would focus during the day. It was all my corporate job. But I would set up direct mail and stuff during the nights, and then those calls would come in during the day. I would field them after hours or on my lunch break, and do appointments after hours or appointments on the weekend. But I never did a deal. That first year, I didn't do a deal.
Wow.
It was, I've now have since come to understand that Southern California is a different beast. There's a lot of big companies, like mega companies, that are trying to do a lot of marketing to lock up these deals. And probably wasn't as skilled as I am now. And so we didn't do a deal. It wasn't until we came up to Portland. But once we came up to Portland and did my first deal, I worked for 3 more months, and then during that time continued wholesaling, doing more deals, and it was tough. It was tough because, we were starting to make money with wholesaling. I still had my other job, and I'm doing 2
Oh,
things.
context switching a lot.
Yeah, context switching, and I felt like I was just going to be totally burned out and fried if I continued to do that. So I took a leap of faith and said, I'm trusting in myself, my own abilities, and God, that I'm going to be able to continue to bring in money if I make this switch.
Yeah, Stephen and I both have similar experiences in that, where Stephen just recently, I'd say more recently than me, but he left a full-time, corporate job as a software engineer.
Yeah.
In that in-between time, right?
I was doing both for about a year and a half, and it nearly killed me. And I think Alex could see it.
Yeah, I did. I can see it wearing on him. And back in the day, I worked at Intel.
Yeah.
And I worked at graveyard shifts. So as soon as I got out of work at 8 a.m., I was on my real estate job from 8 a.m. to sometimes 6 p.m. doing appointments and showings. And there were days where I got 2 hours of sleep, basically. But we're trying to try to build up, our skill sets in real estate. So it took quite some time before we got to a point, right, where, like you described, you got your first deal and getting that done, and then now you've got a little bit more experience to be able to do more and scale more.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to do them both at the same time, and I'm always surprised and shocked when I meet someone that I see them as a successful investor, and then I find out that they have a full-time job and they have for years, and they don't feel like they can quit. And I'm always thinking, well, if you just do one deal, if you just quit today and you just did one deal and made 50 or 60,000 on it, do you think you could do another? And how many deals would one need to do?
Yeah.
In order to replace an income and do that full time, if that's what someone wanted to do?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people feel really trapped that they can't do that. So it's just an interesting
it's scary.
thing that you see. Yeah, it is scary.
It's pretty scary being an entrepreneur, which is what we are, right? Being a small business owner, figuring out where to get the deals, how to get it, and be consistent about it, right? I think many of us are used to being in a system, if you will, and working.
Things are handed to you, a job where it's here's your paperwork, finish your paperwork, we'll pay you for the hour or your salary. And now we're in this whole world where, oh crap, I have to do marketing, I have to do accounting, I have to do literally everything in my business to make it work.
And all the things that are between departments and between positions. We had one the other day. We have a group chat with my company, and there was a land lead that came in. So the prospector from the Philippines tags my sister, who does land, and says, see this lead. But I don't think my sister follows that chat. She has her own CRM. So it didn't occur to anybody to contact her to see whether she saw the lead, except for me. So I did, and she had not seen the lead. But those are the types of things that, as an employee, you're there to do your job, clock in and clock out.
Mm-hmm.
And as an owner, you think of everything, and you have to do everything at one point or another. Not forever. Mm-hmm. So when we get started, we have to do every position in the company.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And then put in people in place to do those. But there's gonna always be things that only the owner's gonna notice.
Yep. Totally.
Yeah, and 2018 was not that long ago, and now you have a full-blown company, and you were just starting wholesaling then. How did you turn, how did you transition from that to starting a whole company with a bunch of employees?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I love that question because it doesn't really get talked about a lot on podcasts. I was stuck with doing deal after deal after deal by myself or with myself and my wife on my team, handling the admin stuff. And also I had one guy that I hired, Dylan, who's still with me, and he was doing driving for dollars and started cold calling and stuff. But to get to that next level, I needed a coach. So actually one of the coaches in a wholesaling course that I'd purchased, Zach Booth, he saw potential in me and gave me a call and said, brother, I'm going to bless your life. And I said, okay, what's up? He's like, I'm going to do one-on-one coaching with you for a year. And I was like, is this free or is it a price? And there was a price, and it was, it was definitely up there, and I had to stretch myself and take a leap of faith to do it. But I'm so glad I did, because with Zach, I would sit down every 2 weeks for 1 hour. It's very regimented. And he basically put me through Navy SEAL training for wholesaling. He got me to set clear goals. He got me to get my KPIs in shape, so key performance indicators, which every wholesaling company needs to be tracking.
Mm-hmm.
And he taught me a lot about leadership, building a team, putting the right people in place, holding people accountable. These are all skills that are completely different skills than wholesaling, than knowing how to ink a deal for below market value and find a buyer for it.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's one hell of a sales pitch. You're gonna pay me, and you're gonna be happy to do it.
Right. It is. He's a good salesperson.
Yeah. So tell us, I guess, where you're at today. What's your portfolio look like?
Sure. So where we're at today is we're still wholesaling. That's still our bread and butter, and always will be, because I feel like all good things come from that, sourcing your own deals.
Mm-hmm.
So we are still marketing. I have 2 salespeople who ink deals, and then we make a decision. Do we flip this? Do we wholesale it, like send it out to our cash buyers, or do we want to keep it as a rental? So we're still doing that. I have a project manager who renovates the flips and also renovates stuff that we keep in our personal portfolio. And for my portfolio, what that's looking like now is we have about 11 properties.
That's awesome.
So that is a mix of some single-family houses, mostly around the Portland metro area, a few in different cities around the state, because we never know where our leads are going to come from. And we have a couple duplexes, and I have a vacation rental in Mount Hood. We're working on a vacation rental right now in Bend.
Nice.
And I have a ranch in Milwaukee, which could be a good single-family rental. We're gonna try something new, and we're gonna try to make that a vacation rental. In Milwaukee, yeah.
Okay. I think are there any short-term rental restrictions there?
Every city has restrictions. Yeah. Other than Mount Hood, there's none. It's unincorporated Clackamas County. But yeah, we're just going through the process and getting the permit.
What makes a property something that you want to take on rather than just pass off? Is there like some kind of number you have to hit specifically?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I learned a lot from Tony Nago, who you guys both know. He was on the podcast 2 episodes ago.
Yeah.
And looking at Tony now is like looking at myself in the future, what it could be if I make smart decisions. So my mindset has been, let me acquire as many properties as I can right now while still keeping my business going and still making sure that everyone that's in my business can eat and we can eat and live our lifestyle. So the flipping and the wholesaling pays the bills, it keeps the company going, lets everyone thrive. But any surplus, if I see a deal that I could take down and do a full burr and keep $100,000 in equity, I don't even need to make money today on it. I'm okay doing that deal if I just break even on it. And obviously the reason is because if you look at that 5-10 years in the future, it's going to be cash flowing a heck of a lot of money in rents. And also the equity will have grown a lot, and then you could 1031 exchange it. So it was actually the first time I met Tony, he was explaining that to me at a UFC fight night. He didn't say anything the whole night, and I asked him, like, so what do you do? And then he started talking nonstop about his investment strategies, and it just really opened up my mindset. And so now if I see a deal that I'm like, this is a property I would like to hold because of, it's not a funky house, it's pretty straightforward, I'm pretty sure I can make money on this, and I could keep at least $100,000 in equity, then I want to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's tricky though, because if you think that you can flip it or wholesale it and make a quick 50 or 60, that's a tough decision to make.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes back to like long-term goals.
Yeah. Just like we were before this podcast, I was talking about the recent deal I took down. And
Yeah.
I know the long term, I want to hold this, but just because we want to wrap up our other big project we're doing too. We don't want to be holding too much
Right.
at one time. So how many projects, going back to Steven's question, is there a formula? What is the formula on what you decide? I mean, I heard what you said about making sure we're keeping enough to feed the team and keep everyone thriving. That's awesome. But is there some sort of formula or ratios that you're looking for?
For the rentals, no. I'm sorry. I wish I could give you an IRR or something like that, but it's been a lot more gut feel than that.
Okay.
One of my friends at the beginning of the year last year, we were sitting around the campfire and we're talking about goals, and I was like, I'd like to get a couple rentals this year. If I could do that, I think I'd be doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes, Scott Dalinger, with your access to deal flow and how much you guys are marketing, you should be able to get 10 rentals this year, no problem. So that was like, whoa. And I started to think about that, and that got in my mind like a bug. And then it became a personal challenge. And then I started to try to do it just so I could tell that guy that, that I did it.
You should get to 100.
What's that?
You should get to 100.
Yeah. So yeah, we basically, we did it, or we got close and picked up, one or two more this year. So
Right.
I guess I'm competitive. So
No, I love that. And this is where I get into what is called the art of real estate, because not everything is just pure numbers.
Yeah.
You have to look at, like, what is the potential of this area? How's it going to grow? How's this equity going to grow in this property?
Yeah.
So, people are always looking for cash flow today, when, hey, like, that might not grow in equity and might not grow into anything more than $100 a month.
Yeah.
And so I think obviously, like, going with your gut sometimes and, thinking holistically about a property is, a good way to go.
And we, like I said, we did a lot in one year, like 10 properties,
Yeah.
9 properties, and
Amazing.
but it was not elegant either. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that. Like, there's a lot of financial stresses that come along with that. We bit off more than we could chew,
Right.
and a lot of projects took longer than they should have. We had a couple that termed out in hard money loans because it took more than 12 months, and so we're finishing those, refinancing out of those finally, but. We all have constraints, right? So it's like we have a certain amount of money, we have a certain amount of time that we have, or employees. So like a project manager can only handle so many at a time before it's more than they could effectively handle. So me as the driver, I probably put too much on my people to burr, but I don't love the process of buying these rentals and renovating them and doing the refinancing. It's like, I actually at times hated it, especially the refinance part. And maybe it's been easier in the past. Everyone makes it sound easy on the Bigger Pockets podcast, but going through it when the rates started going up and being self-employed,
Right.
it was like the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Yeah.
And so part of me is like, let me get to my 10 conventional mortgages and be done with this, and then start to go to commercial.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. What's your kind of feeling about the market right now? I mean, in general, we are seeing a shift.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've seen prices come down quite a bit in both the retail market, but even on wholesaling lists that I'm seeing, that the prices are starting to come down. You see that price renegotiated pricing coming down. What's your kind of pulse on the market and what we have to look forward to, I guess?
Yeah, so I believe a lot. I don't know what's going to happen in the market. I'll leave that to other people. Obviously, it's things are already way tougher than they were, and it may continue to go that way.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a lot in personal responsibility and creating our own destiny. So the mindset I've decided to have is that this is going to be the biggest opportunity that I've ever had, and I need to adapt. I can't keep doing things the same way that I've done before. So we've seen that we send out great deals and we have a hard time moving them, and then we have to renegotiate. So in my wholesale business, we've had to start locking things up for lower prices, or if we think we locked it up low enough and we didn't, then we have to renegotiate and keep renegotiating and work 3 times harder on dispo than we ever did before to talk with our buyers and find out, match certain properties with certain buyers. So we're working a lot harder on disposition. We're trying other strategies like creative financing. So we're locking up stuff on terms, and then we're going to be wholesaling those. So those are deals that we're going to be doing that otherwise in the past we would have thrown those leads away.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be getting into hopefully novations, which is where you can essentially put something under contract, find a retail buyer, and then replace the contract via novation agreement, and then make some spread there. So we're having to get creative. But I do think that those that really hustle and buckle down right now and survive this part, there's going to be a lot of opportunity after a lot of other people go out of business.
Right. Yeah. I've seen some other flippers, if you will, who like you described terming out on one of your loans, right? They've essentially run out of money on their project and capacity, and now they're just trying to dump their deal in the middle of the project.
I've been there. Nobody expects perfect,
Right.
if you were doing everything perfect, I would be like, hey, tell me tell me how you're doing
Yeah.
it, you know.
Mhm.
I've been in a situation where, like I said, got a property, oh, this is great, it's gonna make me a ton of money.
Yeah.
Rates went up, and we're stuck. But I take it as tuition.
Yeah.
Tuition for
Yeah.
learning how we deal with a bad market. And this is my first time in a bad market as a real estate agent too. So I also take this as tuition.
Who's
Like,
in
how do
a
we-
bad market?
Not a bad market, but like it's
Yeah,
a tougher
it's a
market,
different market,
and
yeah. Yeah.
just finding new ways to market and negotiate and write offers that aren't just 100K over or 150K over. So it's a lot more fun actually, and I think the cream will rise to the top.
We have to use more strategies now.
Yeah.
Everyone,
Mhm.
as wholesalers, as agents.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the best things about wholesaling is we are so proactive. You have to be. That if I was an agent, I would be doing the same things. I'd be pulling big lists of data. I'd be building a team of Filipinos and cold calling all day long for leads, for seller leads. And then when you find one that's a really juicy deal, then maybe instead of listing it, maybe you take it down yourself.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like we have one right now in Tillamook. I'll say the price. I might send this out to my list. I'm not sure, but we locked it up for $280. Hopefully by the time the podcast is out, I've made my decision already. So we locked it up for $280. This thing we could list for $399 right now.
Wow.
Nice.
So we could wholesale that deal. We could buy that, take it down, and put it on the market. So that's one thing that we're going to be doing. Like, okay, if it's harder to find cash buyers for deals now, but we're getting more and better deals, like, let's take them down and relist them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people just need to be doing more strategies.
Yeah. Interesting. Actually, let's talk a little bit about how you find deals. In the whole, like I will describe what we call bandit signs. Like everyone's drives down the street, you see the sign in the corner, "We buy houses cash."
Yeah.
Now I've heard you say, you've talked about it twice, about having a team in the Philippines doing your prospecting for you. So how are you finding your deals?
Okay, so we have a website. So we get some leads from our website, not very many, but they're super hot when we get them. That deal in Tillamook is a website lead.
So they're just motivated because they're coming to you to be like,
Yeah,
hey,
they're
I need
Google
help.
searching. They're like, how to sell my house fast for cash. And then they see your website and they fill out the form. And if they've done that, this is like red hot.
Yeah.
And and if it's 10 p.m. at night, you still call them at 10 p.m. And set that appointment for the next morning. So this website, we do direct mail. We do cold calling and JVs. So people that are in our market that have a deal and where they have leads and they want our help with it, we'll do a JV agreement with them, and we do text message blasts.
Okay.
So those are our main marketing channels.
Interesting. How do you on their prospecting? How are you identifying who's a potential seller? Are you just calling through the phone book randomly, or how do you identify who to call?
Yeah, the great question. We call those lists our marketing lists. So the bread and butter for us has always been driving for dollars. So we have a driver and that person uses an app and they drive around neighborhoods and they just pin all the bad houses. So we try to set a set number per week to have the driver pin. There's also probates, there's evictions, there's notice of defaults, there's divorce. Those are like small lists, but have much higher motivation. So you have to be doing those, as with anything, you have to be doing it consistently for a long period of time. Because with the driving for dollars list, we might go months without a deal from it. And then all of a sudden we get 2 or we get 3. And you weigh how much we made against how much we spent to build it. And same thing with divorce. It might be 6 months between divorce deals, but when you like put a process in place and then it happens on autopilot because you put the person in place and they pull it and it happens every single week. At the end of the year, you look how much money you made versus how much you spent to make that happen. And that's how we make a decision which list to keep and which to do away with.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, and we go to a lot of real estate investing events. I'm sure you have a lot of people come up to you and ask you, how do I get started in wholesaling? What would you say to someone who asked you that question?
I would say to go find a deal. So if someone has absolutely no money, they could door knock. If someone has some money, let's say a few $100s, they could cold call. Actually, you could cold call for free also just with your cell phone, but ideally to do it at enough volume that you'll need to actually get a deal in a place like Portland, you'd want to pull a list. So I would recommend starting with say absentee owner list.
Mhm.
You could do out of state absentee owner if you wanted, or just absentee owner. You want to set some filters so that you don't have any things that have been recently sold. So you might do last market sale date is 3 years or older. So that way there's been some equity buildup during that time. You may want to exclude newer homes. So set the filters to like the year 2000 and earlier. And a title company can pull that list for you for free. So title companies have sales departments. You don't need to spend money on PropStream or any of these softwares to pull lists. Like a title company can get you the list for free. What you do need to spend money on is skip tracing. So I think it's like 13 cents per address or something like that. But that means for $130, you could skip 1,000 addresses and then cold call them. And so I would use Mojo Dialer. There's some other ones out there, but if I wanted to get started, that's what I would do. And that's, that's really the barrier to entry, that most people won't do that, or they won't do it with any sort of consistency for long enough to get a deal.
Can you explain skip tracing real quick?
Skip tracing is when you take a list of addresses, and that is, the list of addresses will typically come with the owner's name, first name and last name, and then the owner's address, which may be the same as the property address or may be different.
Mm-hmm.
And then you send it to a company. There's a lot of them out there, so just Google it. And they send you back that same list with phone numbers for the owners.
Okay. That's great.
So if I was an agent, I'd be doing the same thing. It's
Right.
like we're just talking about this in our office.
Right.
We're going through some cold leads right now, and that we got months ago, and we had this guy that treated my caller, Taylor, my sales guy, very rudely, and Taylor's like, well, what do you want to sell it for? He's like, well, you make me an offer. So Taylor's like, I need to see it. So he sets the appointment for Monday, and I tell Taylor, hey, Taylor, I don't think that, I'm not sure if this guy's actually a seller. He may just be, everything's for sale for the right price type of guy. I said, call that guy back and just ask him directly, like, hey, do you actually want to sell this? So Taylor calls him back and goes, hey, excuse me, am I going to be wasting my time if I come out on Monday? Or do you actually want to sell this? And the guy's like, yeah, I need to sell it. I need to get this thing sold and pay my ex-wife. So being direct with questions really helps with these conversations. But our takeaway from that is Taylor's also a realtor, right? So he does this for me to get wholesale deals, but he could take the throwaway wholesale deals where they want full price and list those.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just saying, like, man, if I was a realtor, I'd be doing this exact same thing.
Yep.
Be pulling big lists and using some software and like cranking dials. The proactive way is the best way.
Yeah.
Well, it's the only way I know.
Yeah.
There's probably better ways for realtors, but
Absolutely. I always tell my team and mentees, pick up the phone. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone. Just call. Be direct.
Yeah.
And, find out their motivation. Like
Yes.
you're saying, like, do you really need to sell?
yes.
What are some, new for new licensees, new want to be wholesalers? They're like, what do I say?
Sure.
Is there a script you can share with the listeners?
Yeah. So the script that most people use and many people that are sellers have heard, it doesn't matter. It's ring, ring, ring. Hello? Yeah. Hi. I know this call's out of the blue, but I was calling about a house I believe you have on Main Street. And they'll go, yeah. Well, I just wanted to see if you consider an offer on that property there. And then they may be like, well, what kind of offer? And then our next question is, well, if we could pay all cash and close quickly, what would be, and take it as is, what would be the best price that you could do? And then they may give a number or they may not. Whether they do or don't, we now have the conversation going. Then we're going to conditions. We'll ask questions about the condition. Hey, so what kind of work does the house need? Is there any deferred maintenance? How's the roof? How old are the kitchens and bathrooms? If I were to give you a $10,000 gift card to Home Depot, what would you use it on for your house? So we'll ask questions like that for condition. We'll want to know timeline, like, hey, ideally, when would you have this sold? Is it within the next 2 months, 3 months? If we could reach a deal on price, would you sell within the next 30 days? We'll ask questions about motivation. So the best question is, sounds like a great property. Why would you consider selling? You just got to sound like, that's how you have to deliver it.
Take one close.
Yeah, that's how you have to deliver it. It's like you're so baffled and befuddled. Like, why would you consider selling it? And then people will come and, more often than not, tell you why. And asking again about the timeline is a great way to pull out motivation.
Mhm.
I can't sell it until 2 months. Okay, awesome. Yeah, not a problem. Hey, let me ask you this. What's happening in 2 months? What's going on? So we'll ask like layered questions and try to dig deeper to find out someone's motivation. And then, so we talked about price, timeline, motivation, condition. So those are the four things that we try to touch on in every one of those calls.
Awesome. Wow. Now I heard you say you have 4 or 5 Filipinos calling?
We have 2 gals in the Philippines.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have a gal in the Philippines too.
Yeah, they're great.
I love them.
And I used to do the calling myself. Then I hired Dylan to call, but he's now doing acquisitions. So then I needed to replace him.
Mm-hmm.
And during COVID, I couldn't find an American to work for $20 an hour making cold calls.
Mm-hmm.
I tried and tried because I really believe that you get the best results with someone that's right next to you.
Yeah.
That you can train and give them live feedback. And so as a last resort, because I'd tried Filipinos before and, it didn't work for me. But as a last resort, I went back there and found 2 girls who are very reliable, very nice, and very good.
Yeah. Awesome.
But, you have to, that's a whole other topic that I'm sure there's people more qualified than me. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's tough. Like, quality, I'm not going to say, you can definitely get good quality by outsourcing, but it's tough when they're on a whole different time zone and across the world. So
Yes, I'd say the key thing is for anyone that's going to do it is you have to pay for the call recording and then listen to them and then give them feedback because they're always not going to be good in the beginning, and that's just that's normal. And then but you have to train them, and then they have to show that they can learn, take your feedback, and then they can learn, and they could improve like their tone of voice on the phone. They could sound happier, and they can not sound like they're sleeping. That's the one that they'll oftentimes it's the middle of the night, right? So they'll sound sleepy, and but you have to pay for the call recording and then make sure that they show improvement. And if they don't, then you need to cut them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, see, any wrap up questions you want to have?
Yeah, no, obviously this is great. If people are looking to find you or get a hold of you, how can they find you?
So I'll give my cell phone number, which is 503-891-0643. You could send me an email, scott@coasttocoasthousebuyers.com. It's the number 2, or just find me on Instagram or Facebook. My Instagram is scottdalinger.realestate.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much for all you've given to our listeners today. Really very informative and valuable. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Really happy to be on this. Great podcast. Really enjoyed listening to the episodes and the lead up to this. So, yeah, keep it up.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.